Eighth. Okay. So, দীপঙ্কর স্যার অ্যান্ড কেবি স্যার, আমরা শুরু করতে পারি?
না, নিশ্চয়ই।
ওকে, নমস্কার। It's a very pleasant and pre-winter enjoyable afternoon during this festive season. I feel honored to be a part of this lecture series organized by our Department of Anthropology, Holdia Government College. Today, we are just going to enjoying and enriching ourselves by our sixth lecture, Anthropology-based nutritional status of adult tribal population, an overview by our honorable speaker, Professor Kaushik Shankar Bose. I am very proud of him. I am also proud of our officer in charge, though today he will not be present in this board because of his some administrative work. Our IQAC coordinator, Professor Dipankar Sadukha, will take part of the dual part from his department and also from OIC's department. I am really very proud of them, as whenever we are doing any kinds of academic work, their pleasant face and they are always raising their hands to work properly, and their blessing always help us to do proper work. Our departmental head and our colleagues, they are not only teacher, but they are very much dynamic academician and think tankers who always think and motivate the path to develop the students' internal strength. The COVID situation and traditional weather changing condition bringing many health issues to our beloved colleagues and listeners too. Our colleague, Mr. Pinaki Demoulik, is not able to attend because of his some personal health issues and going to consult doctor. Even our uh, colleague, Dr. Shoumi De, is suffering from typhoid. Still, she is on the board. And our another two colleagues, HOD Sir, Professor Bhuvan Mohan Das, and our colleague and proper technician at the present situation, Dr. Mohan Chandra Dolai, they are taking part each and every moment, and their participation is really enjoyable. And I am also proud for the listeners who are waiting for the lecture of our dignitary and the Professor Kaushik Shankar Bose. So, at the present situation, what the Indian tribal situation is, tribal constitute a sizable portion of Indian population. What Professor Bose will say something about it. They are inhabitants of almost all states of India. There exists much biological and social heterogeneity between different Indian tribes. The nutritional status of tribal people is an important issue in India due to their marginalization from mainstream population with respect to varied facilities. However, data on their nutritional status are limited. The presentation of this platform will discuss the application of the anthropometry in evaluating adult nutritional status. It outlines the different measurements used and as well as the appropriate cutoff points. It also aims to give an overview of the prevalence of chronic energy deficiency CED evaluated using body mass index BMI and Indian tribes based on studies published hitherto. And he will focused on double burden of malnutrition among some Indian tribes. So thanks to everybody and thanks to our Professor sir and our coordinator sir. Please, coordinator sir, uh, take the mic and say something for us. Thank you, sir. Over to coordinator sir, Dipankar, Professor Dipankar Sadhukam.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. As our officer in charge, Dr. Piyush Tripathi, sir is not present due to his administrative important meeting. So, on behalf of Holia Government College, as well as the IQAC of Holia Government College, I heartily welcome today's distinguished speaker and a very well-known personality, Professor Kaushik Shankar Bose from Department of Anthropology, Vidyasagar University. Professor Bose is also an international fellow of UBVO, University of Oxford, UK. Thank you, sir, for giving your valuable time to us. Today, for the sixth lecture, the topic is anthropology-based nutritional status of adult tribal population and overview. As the Department of Anthropology organized this series of lectures for students of this subject, so this topic will enrich the knowledge of students. I again thanks all the faculty members of Anthropology Department for their continuous thinking to their students. I also like to thank our officer in charge, Dr. Piyush Tripathi, for his continuous support. Even when he very much ill, still he tried to solve different college-related issues over telephone, and sometimes with his illness, he also used to come to college to solve the issues. Finally, I welcome all the participants for today's lecture and wishing a successful outcome of this lecture. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable comments. We'll go ahead by your blessing. Thank you, sir. Um, Now, uh, the our head of the department will say something for our sixth lecture series. Over to you, sir. HOD, sir. Professor Bhuvan Mohan Das.
Thank you, Salinda. Thank, thank you, Salinda. Good afternoon, respected teacher, our officer in charge, IQAC coordinator, Dr. Dipankar Sadhukha, my colleague, all other dignitaries and participants. I would like to say Shubho Vijaya to everybody. Yes, Durga Puja is over. Some other pujas are knocking at the door. But during this festive season, our thirst of knowledge gather us again in this virtual dais. On behalf of the Department of Anthropology, Haldia Government College, I, Dr. Bhuvan Mohan Das, welcome you all in this lecture series. This is the sixth lecture of the state level series by organized our department in association with the IQAC of the college. We, the faculty members of this organizing committee, are really happy to be the host of this lecture series, not only because we are providing a platform to the undergraduate and postgraduate student of the discipline, but also receiving academic support from several eminent speakers on this virtual dais during this new normal pandemic situation. And today we have with us in this platform eminent speaker, Shiksharatna awardee, Professor Kaushik Shankar Bose, sir presently working as Professor Department of Anthropology, Vidyasagar University, and he is the expertise in the areas of nutritional anthropology. Today, Professor Bose will deliver a lecture on the anthropometry-based nutritional status of the adult tribal population in India. This topic is relevant not only to the fraternity of biological anthropology, but also any human being who wants to understand the nutritional status of human being. We hope today's discussion should have an beneficial impact of the student as well as the faculty member of the discipline. Now, I also want to share with you the fact that we received huge response from the students, research scholars, faculty members of the discipline, not only from different colleges and university of West Bengal, but also from other states in India. Thank you all for your encouragement and support. Well, I know that the listeners are waiting impatiently to hear our today's invited speaker, Professor Kaushik Shankar Bose. But before moving to the academic discussion, I would like to hand over this mic to my colleague, Dr. Solil Kumar Datto, for introducing our honorable speaker. SKD sir, please take over this virtual dais.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your valuable comments and highlight to the points how the students will enrich and how the other non-anthropologists are also enriched themselves through these lectures. I will request you and our coordinator, IQAC coordinator, to both please stay with us during the lecture. And before starting our lecture, uh, we will have to introduce something about Professor Kaushik Shankar Bose. Though the name is enough, still for the beginners and the new or the Khude anthropologists, it is very necessary to know about his proper name and why he is famous for his name itself. Professor Kaushik Shekhar Bose is a professor since March 2010 at the Department of Anthropology, Vidyasagar University, Midnapur. Earlier, he joined the same department as an associate professor in March 2002. He has been the recipient of several scholarships, fellowships, and medals. He is a member and fellow of several national and international professional bodies. Most notable among them is the International Fellow of the Unit of Biocultural Variations of Obesity, UBVO, Oxford University, UK. He was the recipient of Commonwealth Scholarship 1990 and obtained his PhD from Cambridge University in 1996. He was the Queen's College. He was at the Queen's College, Cambridge. Earlier, he had obtained his PhD degree from Punjab University, Chandigarh in 1992. He also worked as a postdoctoral fellow at the Department of Nutrition and Dietetics, King's College, London, during 1996-97. He has published more than 300 research papers in peer-reviewed national and international journals, besides authoring a book and editing 10 books. Professor Bose has also been awarded several research projects, grants to undertake investigation on growth and nutritional status of pre-adults. He is the editor of the Journal of Life Sciences, beside acting as a member of editorial board of several national and international journals, including Annals of Human Biology. Moreover, he acts as a reviewer for more than 50 national and international journals. His main areas of research are anthropometry, growth, nutrition, body composition, and ethnic variation in health, disease, and nutritional status. He has supervised 16 PhD students and has been working, collaborating research with several institutes in India and abroad, including the Institute of Anthropology, Police Academy of Sciences, Warsaw. Professor Bose visited the Unit of Anthropology, Police Academy of Sciences, Warsaw, as an Indian National Science Academy, INSA. Police Academy of Sciences, PAS, visiting fellow. He has a memorandum of undertaking, MOU, with Professor Salomir Koziel, Department of Anthropology, Hirschfeld Institute of Immunology and Experimental Therapy, Police Academy of Science, Warsaw, Poland. He is also the Indian collaborator in an international research project funded by National Center of Science in Poland. Professor Bose was awarded a DSc degree by Vidyasagar University in April 2016. Recently, he sorry, along with colleagues from USID, TAPS University, FHI 360, and other countries, has proposed a new global cutoff point of mid-upper arm circumferences (MUSC) of 24 centimeter to determine adult adult undernutrition. And the last few days back, he received Shikharatna award from our state government. So we are very proud of him, as he is a professor, an honorable professor of our university, as I have covered that university in my life in several years. And so many our students are also studying there. They will enrich themselves from our professor sir. Thank you, sir. Uh, this is your time, and please enrich us by your valuable speech. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think I am
Thanks.
audible to everybody. Everybody can hear
Yes,
me?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
You are audible.
Okay. Thank you very much for the kind invitation. First of all, I must thank the teacher in charge in absentia. Unfortunately, couldn't make it, Dr. Tripathi. And also, I must thank the IQAC coordinator, Dr. Sadhukan, for his kind words, and all the organizing committee members, many of whom happen to be my students, including Mohan, Shomi, and kind words from Shomi just now, and mostly also the head of department, who took a lot of effort to organize this lecture. I'm very honored. Thank you very much, and I think we can start off. I'll just start off with the PowerPoint. Is it visible?
No, sir.
More?
PowerPoint is not visible. PowerPoint is
now,
not visible now.
now, just wait. It's not. It should be visible now. No.
No. Yes, sir. That maybe no. Yes. Yes, sir.
Oh, it's okay now.
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, good. So let us start off with the first slide. Now, this is a photograph taken 3 years ago. As I was mentioning, this was taken in Washington, D.C., where there was a global meet to discuss and define the new cutoff point for determining adult undernutrition in using mid-upper arm circumference, from where we discussed, and eventually we came up with the cutoff point. Now, this is at the FHI, that's Family Health International 360, means the global headquarters of Washington. I will come to this slide much later on, but this is just an introduction. Okay, so now this is the title of my lecture: Anthropometry-based nutritional status of adult tribal populations in India. This is more or less a review presentation, where I will be presenting a background on anthropometry and how it is used to evaluate nutritional status, and also give some examples of the level of undernutrition or overnutrition in many Indian tribes. So this is I think most of you know it, my email and my mobile numbers. And now we often use the word tribe, but actually tribe has got many meanings, many implications. But in anthropology, is a notional form of human social organization based on a set of smaller groups known as bands, having temporary or permanent political integration, and defined by traditions of common descent, language, culture, and ideology. 2 words have been highlighted here, 3 words. One is tribe, one is anthropology, and one is defined. This is the general definition of tribe as we anthropologists look at it. Okay. Now, you see, many anthropologists use the word tribe, but many of our colleagues or even our students may not be aware as to from where this word originated from. The term originated in ancient Rome, where the word tribus denoted a division within a state. It later came into use as a way to describe cultures encountered through European, European contacts, exploration by the European explorers. Now here this lecture will not talk about tribes in the global context. I will restrict myself to the Indian context. Now, in India, as you are very familiar, we have this what we call scheduled tribes. Now, scheduled tribes have some typical characteristics. I've highlighted 5 of them. They may not have all of them, but they will have at least one of the characteristics. It is essential for a tribe to have at least one of the characteristics of the 5 mentioned. They may have more than one, they may have 2, they may have all 5. The first one is have indicators of so-called primitive or pre-literate traits. You will notice that I've used the word so-called primitive within inverted commas because this is a value-loaded word. It's obsolete and we should not use it anymore. But it used to be used. That's why I've put the words within inverted commas. Then they have a distinctive culture. Normally they have some geographical isolation, and they normally shyness of contact with the community at large and economic backwardness. Mind you, as I mentioned, not all tribes have all the characteristics, but at least one they must have. Otherwise, it's not valid to be called a tribe. Now, the Indian tribal population constitutes 8.6% of the total tribal population of the country. That's numbering over 104 million. That's as per the latest census, 2011. Now, the important point, if you notice, they cover approximately 15% of the country's area. So, although that means almost double the area they have, half the population. Normally, what happens in normal population, in non-tribal populations, there's more people, less area. So, there is a shortage of land, the pressure on land. Whereas in case of tribes, is the other way around. They have a lot of land, less population. And that's one of the reasons for the conflict between tribes and non-tribes of land encroachment on the multinationals. And anyway, that's another entirely different topic. But this is vital to realize that they have double the land as per their population, which is not the case for non-tribal populations who have more people, less land. That's why this conflict with land comes up. Now, according to Article 342 of the Indian Constitution, at present, there exist 697 tribes recognized by the central government. Now, around 75 approximately of them are recognized as PVTG. Now, you'll notice now this word PVTG, these words, they refer to particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Now, they are not referred to as primitive, which many people earlier, they're vulnerable. Why? Not because they're vulnerable, physically weak or suffering from undernutrition, vulnerable, numerically vulnerable. That means they have less in number. So there is a vulnerability, there is a fear of extinction. And if you notice, I put the 697. Though this figure also is debatable. The Constitution says 697, and the Survey of India gives another figure. Each states, in some states, a particular population is considered tribe. They may not be considered tribe in another state. And so there's a lot of confusion as the number of tribes in India. It depends on the source. I've here quoted the Constitution, which says at the Article 697, but Anthropology of India, Survey of India have got different figure. Each state governments give different figures. So anyway, we can safely say that there are more than 650 tribal populations in India. That's without a doubt. Now, more than half of the Indian population is considered in certain states of India, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand. Now, you will notice, and state with the highest proportion of tribe is Mizoram. Almost everybody in Mizoram belongs to a tribe. And there are some states which don't have a tribal population, for example, Chandigarh. So, the distribution of tribes is not uniform in India. It's scattered. Some states have more, some states have less. Now, that's what I just now mentioned is depicted graphically in the Indian map. You see that there's a lot of variation. Not all states have equal number of tribes. Some have more, some have less, some don't even have any tribal populations. Now, when we talk about this undernutrition, we start with child. Now, the child undernutrition, there are various causes. Now, if you look carefully at this figure, you will see there are 4 levels. There's basic causes, there's underlying causes, there's immediate causes, and ultimately interchange consequences comes up. So the intervention can be at the basic level, at the underlying level, or at the immediate causes. So actually we start off, it depends whether you start from top to bottom or bottom to top. But I don't want to spend much more time on this because this itself can be talked about for an hour or a separate lecture. But you'll see that there is as Shirley just now mentioned, that the concept of malnutrition, it's a biosocial phenomenon. It's not entirely biological, it's not entirely social, it's interaction between biology and social, by factors. And that's what leads to this. There's like food insecurity. That's the social factor. So, and then there are other factors like disease, which is biological. So it's an interplay between social and biological factors. Now, monitoring of tribal nutrient status of tribal or rural populations. Now, India is a developing country with the majority of its population residing in rural areas. Thus, for India to become a developed country, rural development is a paramount interest. The nutritional status of tribal rural, you will notice I'm using the word tribal oblique or stroke rural because it's more or less synonymous, because the majority of tribal people population they reside in rural areas, so we can use them interchangeably. Is an excellent indicator of the development. Why the monitoring of nutrient status is therefore a very important aspect in the study of tribal or rural development. Of particular interest is, you see, is the nutrition status of those people who require more, like infants, children, pregnant or lactating mothers, and elderly individuals. So I'll come later on to this point. It's some sort of a paradox, you see. Those who require more, they get less, and those who require less get more, many a time. So this burden becomes double. So it's like a paradox. Those who require, like infants, children, pregnant, lactating mothers, and elderly individuals, they require more nutrition, but ironically, they get less. Hence, the shortage or the shortfall or the deficit is huge. Now, nutrition studies, my presentation is basically only on adults, but we have to go for back a bit and study a bit on the on children. Otherwise, we can fully understand the concept of nutrition among adults. So the nutrition studies on adults is there are two most commonly used methods to study health and nutrition status of adults. They are cross-sectional studies, longitudinal studies. Cross-sectional, as the name implies, it only you study an individual only once. Longitudinal, you study the individual repeatedly over a fixed period of time with a fixed cap. It can, and longitudinal studies can be pure longitudinal, semi-longitudinal, mixed longitudinal. I don't want to go into details, but longitudinal studies involves several measurements, and whereas cross-sectional studies require only one measurement. Now, nutrition status can be determined by several methods, but the most important one is anthropometry. Why? Because I'll come to that later on in this presentation. Now, the word anthropometry is derived from the root words. Most of you know who are doing anthropology. Anthropos meaning man, metry meaning measurement. Simply measurement of man. We measure man. Now, why is anthropometry the most important or widely used? This point explains it. Anthropometry methods are inexpensive, reliable, and can be easily undertaken in field settings with a minimum use of equipments. It is the most appropriate method for large-scale community surveys. You notice the last sentence is very, very important from anthropological point of view, because we are concerned with population studies, we are not concerned with individuals. A clinician or a pediatrician considers a patient and he or she deals with that particular patient. They are not concerned with the population, whereas we are not concerned with individuals per se, we are concerned with populations. That's why we require large-scale surveys, and for which anthropometric methods are the most appropriate. Now, anthropometric variables, now there are very many variables. There are various anthropometric variables. However, for nutritional studies in adults, the following are commonly used to evaluate nutrition health status. This height, weight, this mid-upper arm circumference. Remember the first slide I showed you, mid-upper arm circumference is very important. Then waist circumference, hip circumference, and skillful measurements. I want to mention one point here, that there are more than 256 anthropometric variables which exist, but not all of them are useful for evaluating nutrition status. Traditionally, or in classic anthropology, anthropometry was used to study ethnic or racial variation in living as well as fossils or skeletal material. In those cases, many measurements were used to study variation, but from the nutrition evaluation point of view, the main ones mentioned here are sufficient, because there are very many measurements which exist, which have got no value as far as evaluating nutritional status is concerned. Now, the whole problem starts with low birth weight. Now, the prevalence of low birth weight, as LBW, is what? Birth weight are less than 2.5 kilograms at 37 weeks of gestation, which is a term. If it's less than 37 weeks, it's called preterm. So then the next statistics, if you look at it, almost is very high in India. Almost 1/3 of all neonates is newborns in India are low birth weight. It is one of the highest rates in the world. Now, the last point which I mentioned here is very, very important. This is one of the main causes of adult undernutrition. The main problem starts off with low birth weight. India has some of the highest low birth weights. Now, the thing is, I will not go into details because that itself will take a whole class. Now, the methods of evaluating nutrition status, as I mentioned, there are very many variables are there. Some of the ones I'll mention is the simple screening of nutrition among third world adults can be done using MUSC. Remember the first slide? So we can use MUSC, and the cutoff points are given there. That's 23 centimeters for men, 22 for women. Now you see, whenever we use anthropometry, whenever we use a variable, we must have a cutoff point. Without a cutoff point, this is of no use, because then we don't know who is more, who is normal, who is less. Now the first slide which I showed, now that the text comes here, is recently, year before last, a new cutoff point has been proposed to determine adult undernutrition. Now we have proposed a cutoff point of 24 centimeters, and the scheme is given. It has been proposed by the Food and Nutrition Testing Assistance Project FANTA of USAID. It is based on numerous studies conducted all, including India. So the cutoff points are given here. So I will encourage my colleagues and my students, research scholars, to use this cutoff point either to substantiate our views or to contradict us. Either ways we get cited. So either you support this or you don't support it, but we need more data using this cutoff point. Now, the other important variable is the body mass index. I think most of you are familiar with this. It's the most commonly used measure of malnutrition among adults. You're familiar with, I think, the formula. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the cutoff points which are given below. And among the undernutrition is again subdivided into three categories: the CED grade 1, CED grade 2, CED grade 3, depending on the severity of the undernutrition. And lower the BMI, the more severe the grade. And recently, these new cutoff points have been proposed by the WHO for Asia Pacific region. Why? Because Asian populations normally have higher risk of cardiovascular disease at a lower BMI. So that is why they have revised the cutoff point. But mind you, the important point here is, the interesting point is that they have revised the upper cutoff point, not the lower cutoff points. So the 18.5 undernutrition remains the same. There is no doubt about that. The difference is the 30 has become 25 and 25 has become 23. That is, the obese has become, and the overweight cutoff points have been lowered. But the lower cutoff point remains the same. This was given in the year 2000 by WHO. Now, so what? You go to your population and you measure BMI. What does it mean? Now, if you go to your population and you measure BMI and you find that 5% people are having low BMI, it's just a warning sign. You just have to monitor it. But if it's between 10 and 15% low BMI, it's a poor situation. That's a medium prevalence. If it's between 20 and 39, there's high prevalence, which is a serious situation. And if it's more than 40% or more, it is very high. That's a critical situation. So this has got some public health implication. Now, along with anthropometry, the other important part to evaluate nutrition status is we must consider the food consumption or dietary intake. The food consumption can be evaluated in the methods given here: the 24-hour record, estimated food record, weight food record, dietary history, and food frequency questionnaire. I will not go into details of each of the methods, of the limitation and advantages, because that way this lecture will never end. But suffice enough to say that the last method is most commonly used for field purposes, food FFQ. The only problem, every method has got advantage and disadvantage. The last method advantage is very useful for field studies, large scale samples. But the disadvantage is that we do not get the amount; we only get the frequency. That means we won't get the calorific intake and the amount of. We only get the frequency. Whereas other methods will give you information on the amount, but each method has also got its own drawbacks. So which method to use depending on your objective. But normally in field settings or for anthropological work, usually we prefer the last method, which is more suitable for field service. Now, this also, I think most of you are familiar. Human nutrition is not only about, say, fat, but there are 6 kinds of nutrients which are important as carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, water, minerals, and fats, minerals and vitamins. Sorry. Now you notice the first three they are called macronutrients. The last 3 are called micronutrients. Why? Because the first 3 you require, rather the first 3 are macronutrients, the last 2 are micronutrients. Why? Macronutrients means you require in large quantities, micro you require less quantities. And the other important difference is that macronutrients have got calorific value, where the micronutrients do not have any calorific value. Minerals and vitamins do not have any calorific value, whereas proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids have calorific value. Now, this lecture deals with various aspects of nutrition studies in tribal rural population. Now, rural India has one of the highest prevalence of malnutrition in the world. There are ethnic and regional variations, but extensive and exhaustive data are lacking. As Sholil had pointed out, we still have not got data from very many tribes. There's a lot of gap. The fundamental objective of any nutrition study is to evaluate the nutrition status of population under study. Now, all individuals can be classified very simply either as normal or malnutrition. Now, malnutrition is derived from the root words mal meaning bad and nutrition means food. Now, mind you, malnutrition can refer to over as well as under. In the context of rural tribal development, malnutrition usually refers to undernutrition. I would want to highlight an important point here. If you refer to books which are 30 years, 25 years, 40 years old, 20 years old, people have interchangeably used the word undernutrition and malnutrition because the problem of overnutrition was not so acute. So malnutrition invariably referred to undernutrition. But now in the last 2 decades or last 15 years, maybe 2 decades, the problem of overnutrition is becoming more and more prevalent. So now malnutrition can also refer to overnutrition. So I always insist on my students and my scholars to refrain or avoid using the word malnutrition. Please be more specific. Spell it out. Are we talking about undernutrition or are we talking about overnutrition? Don't use the word, try not to use the word malnutrition because it's confusing. Now, human nutrition, now I'll give you some grim statistics which will probably a very depressing news, but there's nothing I can do about it, unfortunately. Hunger on the international scene. Undernutrition, the form of malnutrition resulting from a deficit of nutrients, is the most common form of malnutrition in developing countries. Of the around 6 billion people on the planet, almost 5 billion people live in developing countries where 20%, 1/5 of the population suffers from it. That's very, very depressing. I'm giving you very latest statistics, WHO 2019. Okay, take it from there. Malnutrition can result from a deficiency of energy, protein, or more usually a combination of the two. Energy malnutrition is the result of deficiency of food. In general, that is, in protein malnutrition, kwashiorkor refers to with the greatest protein needs, those who are growing, developing, or healing. It occurs as a result of wrong combination of foods other than a general lack of food. It is common when the main energy source is bulky cereal grain low in protein. I will not go into details, but basically the two these are basically for infants. That's up to 1 year, namely. They are either kwashiorkor or marasmus. Marasmus basically refers to lack of energy, lack of food, lack of calories. Whereas kwashiorkor refers to not lack of calories but lack of protein, because they get enough calories but they get less protein. There are very many reasons for it, but I will not go into details because then again I have to spend a lot of time on this. But both these forms are prevalent. Kwashiorkor is much more prevalent than marasmus, whereas marasmus is much more acute than kwashiorkor. This word kwashiorkor, I don't know if you know, it comes from Ghana. Ghana is a country in west coast of Africa, near Nigeria. It was called Gold Coast before. It's a word from Ghana, so that's where it was first discovered. So basically, there are 2 kinds. That's either kwashiorkor or marasmus. These are for infants. Now, let's carry on from there. Deficiency of specific minerals and vitamins such as iron, iodine, and vitamin A also occur commonly in developing countries. Worldwide, over 1.6 billion people suffer from iron deficiency anemia. Globally, the prevalence of goiter is 15% iron deficiency. Approximately 190 million preschool children are vitamin A deficient. That's again WHO 2019. Very, very depressing. These deficiencies are most common in those with the greatest nutrient needs or the most limited ability to consume food. That is the underprivileged people. Remember, I told you the paradox: those who require more get the least. It's a paradox. The chronically deficient diets common in developing countries can lead to a vicious so-called cycle of malnutrition, which inhibits the development of a healthy, productive population. Now, I'm coming to the figure, which is next slide. The cycle of malnutrition begins with women who are not able to meet their additional energy and protein needs during pregnancy. When the nutrient needs of the pregnant women are not met, they are more likely to produce low birth weight infants who have a greater risk for complications, illness, and early death. Now, undernutrition is more common among children of mothers who are undernourished them. So that's BMI less than 18.5. That's CED, that is. Then those children whose mothers are not undernourished. Now, this was the text. Now, if you look at the figure, I think it will be much more clearer to you. This is what is cycle of undernutrition. Now, you will notice that I've highlighted or made the women unable to meet nutrient needs. This is the starting point. That's why I made the text bold. Leading to low birth weight infants. Low birth weight infants with high mortality, that means they die. Some of them die. And those who survive, they become undernourished children with impaired immunity and increased rates of infection, which leads to weakened adults, which leads to poor work productivity in the workforce, and which leads to so this is a cycle. So the best way to stop this cycle, break this cycle, is to concentrate on pregnant women and lactating pregnant women. If you can stop low birth weight, much of the problem will be solved. Unfortunately, we as a nation, we have failed in this very basic problem, to deal with this basic problem. The important points of anthropometry. Now, anthropometry, again, why is useful? It provides the single most portable, universally applicable, inexpensive, and non-invasive technique for assessing the size, proportions, and composition of the human body. It reflects both health and nutrition status and predicts performance, health, and survival. As such, it is a valuable but currently underused tool for guiding public health policy and clinical decisions. You will notice I've used the word but currently underused, because anthropometry should be used much more often, because it has got much more huge applications which are not always fully utilized. Now, the World Health Organization should encourage the use of anthropometry as a social and technical instrument for assessing health and nutrition status, and more broadly for evaluating social and economic impact of development. The WHO should support the recommended research agenda on the use of anthropometry to improve health and nutrition of individuals and population worldwide. The WHO should foster the development of international anthropometry reference data and values and appropriate anthropometry indicators of health, nutrition, and social and economic welfare throughout life. The WHO should also develop international and national institutions to keep anthropometric data for future reference as well as research that will provide ethnic specific records, which is very useful from anthropological point of view. Now, that was the background. Now we come to the hardcore data. Table 1, the comparison of mean BMI among trans populations. I presented this thing state-wise. The first slide deals with our own state, West Bengal. This community, there's male, B, and female columns, and then the reference. In many cases, you'll find my reference Bose et al. Or Bose, but besides that, there are other people also working on it. This problem. So you have many communities here. On your left, the male BMI, and you will notice that the cutoff point is 18.5. So in many cases, the mean itself is lower than the cutoff point. So obviously, you get high prevalences. So table 1 deals with West Bengal. Table 2, similar table, deals with Orissa. Now you will notice that in many cases, the females, there's blank. Do you know why? Because there's no data on female. And do you know why? Because we're talking about adults. So why? Because it becomes very difficult for adult male investigators to measure adult women. So the bottom line or the story from this is that we do not have enough female physical anthropologists who are doing research in anthropology. Otherwise, this problem wouldn't have arisen. So that's food for thought, and I urge my colleagues to encourage more women research scholars to undertake such surveys. This from Odisha, table 2. The similar table from Jharkhand, Kerala, and Andamans. Again, you will notice that there's much more. There's more gap in the data from among women. So there's Jharkhand, there's Kerala, and there's Andaman. Okay, this is from the northeast states generally, Assam, Meghalaya, Manipur, Uttarakhand. It's similar. There's population. There's again female less. Much of missing data is there. Okay. Now that was the BMI. So what? The BMI is just a measure. Is just a variable. We use the BMI to actually come up with what is the prevalence of CED, which is actually got the health implication. Now you notice this for West Bengal, figure 1A, and then the 1B is for Odisha. So you see the CED rates. You will notice that in at least in most cases, at least 1/3 of the adults are suffering from CED. In some cases, more than 50%. Okay, so this is A2F. All the figures. This one is your West Bengal, then there's Odisha B, and you notice very high prevalences. Jharkhand, okay, or now then you got Maharashtra. Okay, you notice very high prevalences. Then you got Kerala, Andaman and Nicobar. Then you got Tamil Nadu. Then you got Assam and Meghalaya. Okay. Different tribals. These are and you see. So what can we conclude from here? Thus, we can conclude that the nutritional profile of adult tribal population of India is very serious. Critical nutritional stress. More importantly, women and old age people among them are more vulnerable. That means they're suffering from this problem much more than the general population. Now, hitherto, out of total, this is the important point which Sholil mentioned before my lecture. Out of the total tribal communities residing in India, approximately say 650, their anthropometric data is incomplete. Imagine, more than 200 tribal communities have not been studied as yet. Even after 70 years of independence, there are more than 200 tribal communities about whom we have no idea about their nutritional status. Food for thought, food for anthropologists. It is our responsibility as anthropologists or human biologists to study in details different ethnic groups and generate new anthropometric data for not only comparison with other tribal groups, but also to understand their contemporary health and nutrition status as compared to other non-tribal groups. Appropriate nutritional intervention programs can be implemented based on these findings. Now, from anthropological point of view, I have made the italic font. These may have to be ethnic specific, depending on the ethnic group. They vary. Now, our main endeavor should be to identify the causes and consequences of this nutritional stress, with an aim to ameliorate the problem of undernutrition among tribal populations of India. The design of development programs and health needs of the tribal population have to be identified, keeping in mind their habitat and socio-cultural practices. Again, I will quote what Sholil had mentioned. It's a biosocial problem. So different ethnic groups have got different socio-cultural practices which influence or affect their nutritional status. So these have to be taken into consideration. Then the government needs to play a more proactive role and form a policy for coordinated action across ministries such as tribal affairs, women and child development, agriculture, rural development, drinking water sanitation, and human resource development, that's education, which has now been the Ministry of Education now, inform and strengthen the efforts towards tackling tribal undernutrition. Now, a recent paper by my good friend, I don't know, many of you may be knowing, Khatriyaji Gautamji. He's a professor at Delhi University and he's scholar, Shubhendu Acharya. They have written a very nice paper which was published in PLOS One. Now, what do they write? They write the Indian tribes are suffering from the higher prevalence of undernutrition by further highlighting a high gender bias. The health and empowerment of adolescent and young tribal girls needs additional focus. Now, I made this now bold italics. Overall, no control on undernutrition has been achieved among Indian tribes despite various efforts. This is very, very important. Therefore, a systematic and comprehensive health policy along with timely intervention programs is strongly warranted. In context of tribal development, despite several policies and programs provisioning the accessibility, availability, affordability, and community childcare practices and strengthened implementation remain a challenge to the Indian healthcare system. These are all logistical issues. Now, remember the first slide I showed you, which was upper arm circumference. Now, that is the citation. We have this report has been published. All these authors and the paper. This is the report. The report is determining a global mid upper arm circumference cutoff to assess underweight among adults, men and non-pregnant women. So this report, and it has been again modified, and it has been published in a paper form, in a full publication from CUP, this Public Health Nutrition. Now, and then there's been comments on that, and we have again sort of commented on that cutoff point. Now, this global mid upper arm circumference cutoff for adults, a call to action. This is again from PHN, Cambridge University. These are my co-authors, our colleagues. Now, earlier on, we had done some, I think many of you may know, we had done some work from Midnapur. One of my, Priyanka did a PhD with me, many of you may know, at Vidyasagar University. And based on a PhD work, we worked on slum dwellers. You see, this problem is not only about tribals. It can affect, this undernutrition can affect people from low SES, like this one deals with slum dwellers in Midnapur. This was published again in Public and Nutrition, the reference given there. So it's all interchangeable. What may happen in tribes may also happen in rural areas. It can happen. This is not a rural population. This is the urban population, but low socioeconomic status. This is urban slum dwellers of Midnapur town. So these are urban population, but because they are low SES. So it's a interaction of a lot of factors. Now, as I said, now undernutrition is not the only problem. Manager also refers to obesity. Now you will note, I'll come to this a bit later on. You will also notice in some populations this concept of dual burden of malnutrition is coming up. That means the presence of coexistence of under as well as overnutrition. Overnutrition is what? Obesity and overweight. So this is a book I edited long ago, deals with human obesity, talks about why it's a major health burden, obesity. It's a global burden, not only in India. So this is now again I will quote Sunil as he said that social anthropology. You see, this nutrition status is dependent on so many factors. There's ecology, there's culture, there's health, disease. So this book deals with the interaction of these factors, which leads to, or which the ramifications is felt as a way to evaluate nutrition status or adult nutrition. Adult is okay, it could be even pre-adult. So this is the book. Now this book deals specifically only on indigenous populations. And mind you, this is in the moment not only Indian indigenous populations, but indigenous populations from throughout the world. So we have got Indian tribes here, and then we have got tribes from other parts of the world also, like in South America and other places. So health and problems of indigenous populations. That's why I use the word indigenous, not tribal, because it's a global problem. Now, remember I was telling you about twin burden. Now this book deals with, you see, look at the title, human malnutrition, twin burdens of overnutrition and undernutrition. So please do avoid using the word I am repeating malnutrition. Be more specific. Either use over or under, because when you use malnutrition, nowadays people will get confused. What do you mean, over or under? Because it deals with both. And this book has many papers which deals with either under or over. Or in some cases, in a population, you get both, coexistence. Now, this is a book which I co-edited with my student, ex-student, now is faculty Raj Chakra. I think many of you know. It is PhD from Vidyasagar University. Now, obesity is not only BMI, it also depends where the fat is. This deals with human central obesity. That means fat deposited in the central part of the body, because this fat has got some biological implications which is not quite different from fat in other parts of the body. High rates of NIDDM, cardiovascular is due to the central obesity and not due to high BMI. So this deals with central obesity. Now, this is again a book and my long-time Polish collaborator, Sławomir Koziel, fondly called Slavik. So, human migration, mobility also has got some biological implication. Nutritional status is also affected by migration. So, here we're talking about, in this book, we talk about how migrants suffer from malnutrition, whether under or over. So, this book basically deals with migrant populations. Again, how it affects their nutritional status. Then again, we go back to double burden. The earlier on was double burden was on adults. This one is double burden on children. This co-edited with my, my colleagues, Joydeep Sen. Many of you must be knowing. He's a professor at North Bengal University. Nitish, he was earlier at Assam. Now he's joined in Sikkim, my student. So this deals with double burden among children. So what I'm trying to say is that in children, then there exists in many populations a double burden, the coexistence of under and over. Now, as I remember, I told you about the central obesity. Now, where the fact is, now the central obesity causes some diseases which are like diabetes, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. So these are part of what they call syndrome X. So obesity also has got is linked with syndrome X. This book deals with obesity with syndrome X. Excuse me. So what I'm trying to tell you is that anthropometry has got a lot of implications. Please do not think anthropometry is some sort of like a Taylor text measurement. Anthropometry has a lot of implications. Overweight, obesity, undernutrition, central obesity. Each aspect, implies different things. But the root of all this comes from anthropometry. Because you cannot define obesity, overweight, undernutrition, unless and until you use anthropometry. So the mother technique is anthropometry. That's what I'm trying to highlight here. Now, this is with one of my students, ex-students. Now he's a colleague at Vishabharati, Jyoti. Now, we are dealing with some issues on childhood malnutrition. This is only on children. What I'm trying to show is that how we can use anthropometry in evaluating nutrition for different aspects of nutritional status in different populations. And then the syndrome, remember I told diabetes, and now this is again linked with ethnicity, which is very much interest of anthropologists. And ethnicity is very much linked with anthropometry. So you see, it's all linked. Anthropometry is ethnicity, syndrome X. So this book deals with ethnicity and syndrome X. With my ex-student, he must be familiar with. He's the faculty now at in Purulia. Mithunda, he was my student. Now, remember, I was introduced very kindly and by saying the international fellow at ABVO. I am a fellow of many places, but why did I mention that in my introduction? Because now let's look at what this ABVO deals with. ABVO is Unit for Bioculture, Variation, Obesity, ABVO, University of Oxford. They have two kinds of fellows there. They have got British fellows, that is fellows who are resident in Britain, and fellows who are non-resident in Britain, people like us, or my colleague Slavik Koziel from Poland. So we are international fellows. We don't live in Britain, but we are fellows of this. Now, please let me read out for the Unit for Bioculture, Variation, Obesity, ABVO, at the University of Oxford addresses obesity by bringing together scholars of different disciplines to identify and carry out multidisciplinary studies on obesity, its sociocultural correlates, and particular drivers. Discipline areas involved in collaboration at Oxford include, please pay attention to this, anthropology, public health, cancer epidemiology, politics, and international relations, business studies, economic history. You see, it's all interlinked. It's all interlinked. Research issues include examination of concepts of body size and embodiment, biological and social life histories, consumption affluence, corporate and social marketing, evolutionary adaptiveness of psychological ambivalence, and corporate culture and social responsibility. Instruments for collaborative research and include ethnographies and narrative analysis, very much social anthropology, cultural concepts of modeling, evolutionary life history, theory, political economics, history, and human biology, very much physical anthropology, and epidemiology of diet and lifestyle. This is all interlinked, you see. Now, recently, why I'm showing this, that you might be, I'm giving this lecture at Haldia College. I've gone to the college before, long ago. I think Sholil was there that time. I was an examiner for a practical examination. Now, this paper we have recently published a paper in JB Journal of Bioscience, published from Cambridge University Press. Why I'm showing this, that again, we are talking about different factors. You see, we have found that mother education level is very strongly associated with anthropometric failure, which shows that mother education is very important. And why I'm thinking that this work was done in Haldia. This, because she did her PhD work on Haldia. So that's why I'm showing this. So, you see, in this case, we find that mother education is very, very important. Okay, so that's the, and now, if any of you are interested in my complete list of publications, please have an account, open account in Academia Edu. It's free, and search for me and you'll get the paper. Why I'm saying that you get access to all the PDFs. It'll be easy for you, in case you're interested. Now, as I said, why I'm giving, this is an international conference in Dhaka, which was held last year. Now I'm in the middle center. Next to me is the ISI director, Shankar Mitra. She's a very brilliant scientist. She was interested in what we are. Why I'm showing this is that, you see, in this international conference, you have people from various disciplines coming there. Why I'm trying to lay emphasis on that, anthropology is this is the age of multidisciplinary research. We cannot pigeonhole our research. Research has got no boundaries. So, so you've got statistics. This is actually a statistics conference, you see. This is the second international conference on applied statistics organized by the Institute of Statistical Research and Training, ISRT, Dhaka University, Bangladesh, just last year, 10 months ago. Now, this deals with what emerging challenges in data-centric work. So here you have many people interacting. So that's what I'm going to get at. We have to do collaborative research across fields. Now, remember I told you about the low birth important. Now, I don't know how many of you are very familiar with this great gentleman. He is Dilip Mahanabis. He is the father of ORT. I think you know what ORT is. ORS is oral rehydration saline. ORT is oral rehydration therapy. He's the father of that. He's in the Nobel Committee, and I've been collaborating with him with two PhDs. We have many public. Why I'm saying that he is a man who's working a lot on low birth weight. This is his office in Salt Lake. But this is my long-term collaborator, Slavomir Koziel, the great man from Poland. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable speech. Our students will enrich, and we are also enriched from your important lecture, important experiences. So, thank you, sir. Thank you from us.
Welcome.
Now, Professor Mohan Chandra Dolai will ask some questions from who he has collected the questions from students and our listeners. Welcome to all the listeners and students and faculties who would like to ask some questions. Our Professor Mohan Chandra Dolai will collect the question and he will directly ask the question to sir. So, welcome our listeners and students, faculties, all who are on the board. Please, if you have any questions to share, you can ask.
Very good afternoon, my respected teacher, Professor Bosher, and today's participants also. There are so many questions, and first question is that from the Abhishek Chandila. He is asking you, sir, difference between the common understanding of tribal in different areas like the Australia known as the Aborigines. In Australia, the tribes known as the Aborigines. And America, they known as the indigenous. Please, these terminologies. That is the problem, I think. So, no problem. That is.
It's a very good question. Actually, the thing is, they are universally they are referred to as indigenous populations. But there has been a resolution which has been signed by many countries, but government of India has refused to sign it. Government of India does not define these populations as indigenous populations. They refer to, but globally they are called indigenous populations. Government of India does not recognize the India population. There is a political motive behind it, because the moment you say indigenous population, it means they are the original inhabitants. The moment you say they're the original inhabitants, then the rest become migrants. Then a lot of complications come up. But they are indigenous population. In India, this word indigenous is not used. I think I've answered that question. No?
Okay, sir. Then one question is from our final semester students. That is the Rupal Chakraborty. He's asking, sir, how biosocial problem affects on the human growth. Though the today's discussion not directly related to human growth, and that is also the human growth and nutrition is related. You, sir, kindly enlighten us. Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. Human. Yeah, as actually this point was partly mentioned by Sunil. Is undernutrition, overnutrition, growth, everything is influenced by biological factors and as well as social factors. Biological factors means how much food the person eats, but social factors means sometimes there can be food taboo. That's not a biological factor. That's forbidden to eat. So there you got social factors. So this nutritional status is a result of biosocial factors. There's social factors which influence, there's biological factors. So that's why I gave this reference to Journal of Biosocial Science. Because if you notice that paper, what we are trying to say is that mother's education influences nutrition. No, mother's education is not a biological factor, it's a social factor.
Okay, sir. Arijit Pradhan, he is also our student. He's asking the role of government, both the central and state government, as well as the NGO, role of NGO and the government to solve the nutritional status or nutritional related problem of tribal people in India.
Yes, very good question. I think I've touched upon this topic in my lecture. You see, I'll add a bit. I like this question. You see, when India became independent in 47, we don't have data on low birth rate in India earlier than we have data from the late 50s, and now it's what 2020. If you look at the data from late 50s, that time almost 40% was a prevalence of low birth weight in India. Okay, almost 40%. That is in the 50s, late 50s. Now in the year 2020, it's almost 1/3. That's so in 70 years we have reduced 5%. So where is the development? And a good question. If I may add, I'm not taking any political angle to it, but unfortunately, these things are not discussed in any state assembly of any state or in parliament. I have never heard anybody talk about low birth weight in any parliament. I'm sorry. So I think that answers your question. Have you ever heard of any MP or MLA of any government of any state talk about the high prevalence of low birth weight? I haven't. Which is sad.
Next question from Abhishek Bhaumik. He mentioned that the geographically Indian states produce various types of staple cereals like rice, wheat, and lentils. Can the consequent difference in nutrition be solved by standard distribution in the country? Can the consequent difference in nutrition be solved by standard distribution in the country?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, if you can distribute the food, if people get enough food, then there won't be undernutrition. That's obvious. But apparently, they're not getting. That's why we have the high rates. Obviously, I mean, if the food is distributed, as I was mentioning to the previous question, very good question. If these problems have been addressed to, then we won't have this problem. I mean, after so many years. So obviously, there is a problem somewhere. I mean, they're not getting enough to eat.
Okay, sir. Next question is from the Ritik Banerjee. He just asking a very interesting question. That are there any possible association between material culture and obesity? The association between material culture and obesity.
I'm sorry. You have clean blown me there. I'm not a man of material. I think Mohan can answer that better. I'm sorry. There was one person, unfortunately, he has expired. I mean, our Falgunida who could have answered me. No, you can ask it to our new faculty. He's a man of priestry. We have got a new faculty who is the priest. I think he can probably answer that. I'm sorry, I have no idea about nutrition. I can't answer that.
Okay, we are sorry, Ritik Banerjee, Mr. Ritik Banerjee, from the organizing committee. Then, sir, next question from Oyantika Sahu. Oyantika is from the students from our department. She thinks that please discuss the difference of nutritional status of adult tribal population in India and abroad, actually on the health condition.
Actually, my presentation today was only on Indian tribes. I mean, I didn't talk about the tribe, but in many cases, you notice in the Indian population in say US, they have a problem over nutrition. In many cases, in the US or in Australia, in Canada, in many cases they have a problem of the tribe of over nutrition.
Okay, then again, Abhishek Chandila asking again, why defining of tribes in India is difficult?
So sorry, why? What?
Why the terminology tribe in India is defined difficult?
No, actually, you see, in India we use the word tribe or tribal. As I said, we do not use the word. I mean, anthropologists use it. I also use it in many cases, indigenous populations. But as far as the government of India is concerned, this word indigenous is not used. There's obviously, as I mentioned, there's obviously political consideration, because the moment you say indigenous population, it means they are the original population of the country. Then the rest are migrants. Then you have a lot of political problems coming up. So the government of India does not want to consider them as in the population. In fact, there was a commission, I think in 2013 or 2014, the World Wide Commission, where people have signed the memorandum of Indian populations. I think to best of 17 countries signed. India refused to sign. India has not signed it. So as far as the Indian government is concerned, there is no indigenous population in India.
Okay, sir. Then one question from Kamala Krishnaswamy. She's asking why the tribals are more prone to NCD.
Non-communicable disease.
NCD.
Non-communicable disease, like one. I mean, their general health status is poor. Their general health status is poor. So resistance is poor. So I mean, if they are more likely to get morbid. Like say when we talk about TB, why do they have more TB? Why they have more TB? Because they have undernutrition. So it's all linked. You see, they are linked.
Okay, thank you, sir. One question from Vishwanath Malakar asking, do you think socioeconomic factor like occupation is less explored in relation with nutritional status of the tribal population, as we have seen variation in occupation among tribals?
I agree with you. Not many people have even education. Like you see, the last paper our paper I mentioned, we talked about mother education level status. We from India, unfortunately, not much biosocial work has been done. Either we strictly go for social or we strictly go for physical. This interaction, unfortunately, in India is not so. There's much scope for improvement. Yeah, I agree with you. We should explore more this factor. Like the last paper I showed you, we have clearly shown that mothers' education status is significantly and independently related to undernutrition. And mother education status is purely a social factor. So, but no, as you said, rightly said, not many studies are done in India because we pigeonhole ourselves. No? We either go for anthropometry and not take any other factors, or we go for social factors, not anthropometry. I think the answer lies in when we, as I mentioned, when we synthesize. Jugalbanti, we need a Jugalbanti of a sitar and a tabla. Tabla on its own is no use. Sitar on its own is no use. For Ravi Shankar, you need the Aldaraka. Then the thing comes up.
Okay, thank you, sir. And thank you, the participant, those who are asking for their clarification. And sir, if you permit, I can ask more questions.
No, no, please, I'm free. There's no limit. Please answer question. I'll try to answer to my best if I can, and my best of my ability. Please carry on. No problem.
Okay, dear participants, please raise your question if any, please. our respected teacher is ready to answer.
No problem. I mean, anytime. If I can answer to the best of my ability, I'll try my best.
So, respected listeners, professors, and all the students, you are being requested. Please raise the question. Sir is ready to answer because it's a very much knowledge gaining time. We can gain some knowledge from his lifetime experience. So don't miss it, please. And before that, sir, I have a question.
Please.
Would I ask you? Please? Okay, sir.
Please.
This is okay. Sir, in Sanskrit says, "Vayopatre payoppanam, salopatre bhojanam, khojuripatre shayanam, jharakhanda vidiyate." This was the terminology termed by the Jharkhandi tribes. And the English meaning is telling that they drink milk in earthen pot, take meals on sal leaves, and retired on dead palm leaves are Jharkhand's people. But recent globalization conspiracy, as their view, the globalization and the conspiracy of the so-called Diku are made them such unreliable on themselves because they are not getting milk properly, and the PDS system is under very much political one, and that is why their nutrition system is becoming fall down. So here, what is your experience, sir? Can you be shared?
I agree to a large extent, because it's not only about tribal, even non-tribal. You see, if you look at the tradition, what is happening is that we have some traditional diets. Now it's been shifted to so-called modernization diet or westernization diet, and that's where the problem comes up. Because traditional diets were balanced diets, there was equilibrium. But now this is shifting towards so-called modernization or westernization, and that's where the problem comes up. Obviously, even if you look at the Bengali diet, we had a balance, but then we didn't have things like kurkure then, you see. So that's when kurkure comes up, then the problem comes up. So I to a large extent I do agree, because this equilibrium has been breaking down. If everything is as it was, problem is it can't happen, because with the globalization some changes is inevitable, but we have to strike a balance. But I do agree, because this obesity is coming up. Why? Because people are going for more processed food, they are doing less labor. So naturally, the obesity will come out. The obesity, central obesity, then to a large extent, they're right. Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your experience, sharing of experience. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Okay, sir. One question from our alumni student. This is from the Amit Kumar Maiti. He is asking, what is the condition of low birth weight in perspective of urban areas? Actually, urban areas, that means the urban tribal population. What is the condition of low birth weight in perspective of urban tribal population? I mean,
in tribal, you won't find much in urban areas. Actually, tribal mostly are there in rural areas. But
yes.
Most
those are the migrated. Yes.
The less, but you see, the question of low birth weight is a big problem all over India. It's not only for tribal, even for non-tribals, it's a problem. You see, even for in slums, in low ACS, it's more of an economic problem than non-tribal problem. But why I'm saying tribal? Because most in tribal and poverty go hand in hand, more on this. You see. That's why. But in short, the thumb rule is that 1/3 is the prevalence of low birth weight in India. That means out of every 3 neonate, one neonate is low birth weight in India. This is by thumb rule, which is very high. Because in developed countries the figure is around 3%, 4%, and whereas India is, and this is been going on for decades, and there's no appreciable change, and that is the main reason, as I keep on mentioning, for this nutritional problem, whether over nutrition or under nutrition. The main problem starts with low birth weight.
Okay, sir. Actually, one question from myself, sir. How the nutritional status can be assessed for the older persons, the aged person? What is the suitable method?
I think if you can't measure height, that's why you take mid upper arm circumference. I just mentioned, no, that the what we are working. That's the best, easiest method. Mid upper arm circumference with a tape. With a tape.
Okay. Okay.
That is much easier. That's much easier with mid upper arm circumference.
Is BMI is possible?
BMI is very good, but if you can measure height, ideal, you measure both. And the BMI, both. Best. Measure height, weight, and
Yes, sir. In case of I practically faced that this problem that when I'm taking their height.
That's why I said rather
Very
BMI. BMI problem is height. Sometimes in the kyphosis, so it's a problem. So better you take MUSC. The mid upper arm is easier. That's why I'm laying emphasis in just one measurement, because for BMI you need height as well as weight. Okay, so difficult. Just take MUSC, one measurement better, easier. Easier.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Vishwanath Malakar again asking that.
Please. Yes, please.
What are the challenges that you expect faced by the tribal population after this pandemic situation, in terms of their nutritional status?
I think probably it'll get worse because lack of income. Probably it will, I don't think anyone studies, but I think it will get worse because lack of employment, more poverty. I think I expect it to be worse. I haven't studied, but I expect it will get worse because lack of employment opportunities, lack of income, less income, I think.
Okay, sir. One question from Shima Maji. She is our student. She asking the literacy rate important or is important for decrease the malnutritional status.
Yes.
More
Sure.
literacy rate or more literacy achievement can decrease the malnutritional status.
Yes, the more mother, as I mentioned in the last reference I showed, mother's education is very important for better nutrition status. Mother's education, especially mother's education. More educated means less chance of undernutrition because they are more aware of their health reasons. They take more care. That's so inverse relation. More educated means less undernutrition. That's what the last paper I gave him. I get the example of the whole year data, Pickley, that paper, JBS. That's what I was talking about. That higher education means lower undernutrition. Inverse relationship.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
sir.
So, sir, there is no more question.
Okay. Mohan sir, just I have some queries about migrant laborers. Sir, have you any study from your part or your student about migrant laborer, the present situation, their
No,
CD or
good question. But unfortunately, it's all lockdown. You see, that's why once the lockdown, then we can do some work. Maybe now everything is, we are all closed. Everything is closed. But I think a good point. We people can
yes,
study.
yes, just this is important to the present situation. I think so, sir.
I think we can do some work once we are allowed.
Yes.
Now everything is locked down. Everything is closed.
Yes, that's problem, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you for your valuable comments and valuable experience sharing to us. And thanks, sir, for your presence.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thanks. And now, HOD sir.
Yeah. Shalila, please.
Okay. Then it's the time of vote of thanks. Dr. Shomi De will offer the vote of thanks for today's seminar. Please, Dr. Shomi De, please take the mic.
Thank you, Shalila. Am I audible?
Yeah.
You're audible.
So finally, we are come to the end of this webinar, and it is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this digital platform today. I, Shomi De, on behalf of this Department of Anthropology, Holdia Government College, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the Honorable Speaker, Dr. Kaushik Shankar Bose, Professor of Department of Anthropology, Vidyasagar University, who fortunate us with his presence and took out valuable time from his busy schedule. His wonderful presentation not only enriched the students but the faculty members too. He has wonderfully discussed the topic anthropology-based nutritional status of adult tribal populations and overview. So, thank you very much, sir. Now, I like to extend my gratitude to our Honorable Officer in Charge, Dr. Piyush Kante Tripathi. Without his support, it was not possible to arrange this type of webinar series. We are further grateful to our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Dipankar Sadhuka, also a co-organizer of this webinar. His continuous support encouraged us a lot. And now I would like to thank our convener, Dr. Sholil Kumar Dotto. He has taken an important part to make this webinar successful. And I would also like to express my gratitude to the entire team of organizing committee, including our HOD. A big thank you to them for their hard work to execute this webinar successful. And a special thank to Dr. Mohan Chandra Dolai for his technical assistance. And finally, last but not the least, I would like to thank our participants for being with us and making our effort meaningful. And thank you once again. And now it's over to Sholilda.
Thank you, Shomi, for your valuable and very short but covered vote of thanks. Thank you, Shomi. Thanks to all. And now I'm asking to our HOD and IQAC coordinator, would we finish?
Yes, Sholilda, you can
Okay.
close the session.
Yes, okay. So the session is closed, and we will request to share. If whenever any necessity will raise, then we will reach to you over phone or by mail. Please help us. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. But thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
okay. So close the session now, please. Okay.
Mohan, please
Mohan,
stop
sir.
the
Yes. Mohan, sir, please stop.
live streaming. Mohan.
ওকে তোমরা একটু শব্দ করো না, ঠিক আছে? আমি পড়ছি, ওটা একটু স্লো আছে, মানে নেটওয়ার্ক ভীষণ স্লো।
Okay.